want me to bring him in?
Yeah, probably. Like whatever you did, don't wait for me.
In.
Well, if you could mute yourself, please.
I don't know how. Hold on. Oh, there it is.
Thank you.
All right, it is 7:03, so we will call our regular council meeting to order, and we will begin as we always do with the playing of the national anthem. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for this evening? Don't see any. Okay, if anything arises throughout the agenda, members can disclose those at the appropriate time. On to our minutes from the November 4th council meeting, as well as the November 14th emergency meeting. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve those minutes as circulated? Moved by Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Guichardi. Any discussion on those? No, all in favor? That's carried. Okay. That takes us to public question period. Madam Clerk, I understand there was a question submitted electronically earlier today.
Correct. Yeah. And Corolla Little is logged in. I'm not sure if Corolla would like to ask the question directly herself.
I mean, I can if you want me to.
Sure.
Sure. Good evening, honorable council members. With just a quick question, with the understanding that development charges are earmarked to be spent on only new construction in the parks and not existing infrastructure projects or other areas within the budget, and that they must be spent as they have an expiry date, after which they are no longer accessible. Totally get all that. Could council please advise what the specific expiry date is for the funds allocated for the phase 1 construction of the Fiddle Park?
Okay. And because we had your question in advance, we were able to circulate that to Steve Weaver, who's our planner and sort of our resident development charge expert. So Steve provided a written reply. So I'll read that out because it's probably
Perfect.
better than the response that I could give off the cuff. So what Steve said is the Development Charges Act requires to spend, or sorry, the requirement rather, to spend or allocate at least 60% of the monies in a reserve fund is only applicable to water, wastewater, and roads related services. And he references section 35 sub 1 of the DC Act. While this requirement of the Act does not apply to parks and recreation services, the implication of accruing a large DC reserve in any service category is that the unspent money held in that account is applied towards the future capital costs identified in the next DC background study, which then affects the calculation of those future DC rates. For example, if the growth-related 10-year capital forecast for Parks and Rec was $1 million, and that amount had already been collected and sits unspent in the reserve at the time of the next DC background study, the town would not be able to collect more DCs for Parks and Rec, as the capital program would be considered fully funded by those existing DC reserves that are already held. That's not the case here, but he offers if the Fiddle Park upgrades were shelved and did not proceed, that could reduce the amount of DCs for parks and recreation that could be collected going forward, as those reserves would need to be applied against the 10-year capital plan that would be used to calculate the next DC rates. So the next update to our DC bylaw is actually underway now and is expected to be done by next year. So I guess, summarizing that, if we don't spend the money that's in our DC account now, that money would be considered to sort of be money that's already there and unspent,
Surplus.
which means we wouldn't be able to collect new DC money down the road.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I totally understand the pressure now. Got it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. That was it, Jennifer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And I don't see anybody else signed in. Okay. All right. So we do have a proclamation this evening, and it's a request from the Dufferin Community Foundation regarding the National Day of Giving, which is known as Giving Tuesday. So the proclamation reads as follows: whereas Giving Tuesday is a national day of giving taking place on Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2024. And whereas Giving Tuesday is a celebration of generosity and volunteerism that encourage residents to give as much as they can in whatever way they can. And whereas giving can take many forms, including donating to local nonprofits, volunteering your time, giving physical goods, or helping your neighbors. And whereas it is fitting and proper on Giving Tuesday to recognize the tremendous impact of donations, volunteerism, and community service in the town of Shelburne. And whereas Giving Tuesday is an opportunity to encourage our citizens to serve others throughout the holiday season and throughout the year, now therefore I, Mayor Wade Mills, on behalf of council, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, December the 3rd, to be Giving Tuesday in the town of Shelburne, and I encourage all residents to embrace the spirit of generosity that has always strengthened our community by giving to their favorite local charity. We did have a presentation at our last county council meeting regarding this as well, and I do think that there's going to be some social media stuff that goes out. So as county councilors, we're encouraged to share that on our platforms, and I'll just share that with the rest of you, that if you see that kind of stuff, maybe give it a share. All right, that takes us to council inquiries. Are there any inquiries for tonight? Deputy Mayor Hall, and then Councillor Bernardo.
Yeah, I just thought I would take a moment and report that not only as a member of council, but also the operator of a business, which obviously in this case is KTH, that I did present an opportunity to hunt in the park for their 2025 event. It was a very positive discussion that I had with the Littles. And they did mention at that point that it would certainly give a working opportunity for them. So while, again, further discussion is expected, they do certainly have a suitable location for 2025 if they so choose to choose it.
Okay, that's good. And thanks to KTH for stepping in and making that accommodation as well. All right, Councillor Bernardo.
My questions is for inquiries is for Jim. We have a lot of leaves build up on the Canfield walkway. Is it staff looking at cleaning that up at some point in time?
Through your worship, I'd have to check to see what kind of cleanup it is. It leaves and such, I would think, probably.
Yeah, leaves and such all over the place. It's piling up on the sides of, with the fence being on both sides there, it piles like a tunnel in there.
Yeah, now that our public leaf collection is up, we can catch up with some of that. So staff will be around to get those areas as well. So.
And my second inquiry is regarding, with the rains that we've had in the last few days, there's been quite a bit of puddling on certain sections of sunken sidewalk, both on Greenwood Street, north of Canfield, to the north section of Canfield, north of that. There's a section there by a mailbox which is quite sunken and piles quite a bit of water. And with freezing temperatures in the wintertime, it becomes a bit of a skating rink because it's the whole section of sidewalk, like a whole cement part of the sidewalk there that totally puddles up. And there's another one in between Canfield as and on Greenwood to the south of the north section of Canfield. The same thing happens there as well. Again, a bit of sunken sidewalk and water ponds on there, and it becomes a skating rink. And if snow gets on top, people walking don't realize there's ice underneath, and all of a sudden you're just sliding all over the place in there. So I don't know if we can create maybe something to drain that water away from the sunken sidewalks so that the water doesn't pond on there.
Through your worship, I know at least the one section there by the mailboxes. I know one of the residents was using that as access for their backyard and kind of depressed that area, taking a section of fencing and stuff. So we will have to look at that, but we'll have to note too that they can't proceed through there without damaging that again. So once we get it rectified, then they'll have to have a letter just to say that can't do that. So.
Yeah, well, that is the section I was talking about, but I guess for now, I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of us at least getting the water, now that winter is coming on, to drain away from that area rather than allowing it to pond on there. That's, I guess, what I'm asking.
Yeah. Through your worship, we'll have to go back and look at that, see what we can do to get the drainage off of there. But yeah, we know that that area is an issue that has popped up. So.
Yeah, and the other one is where the fencing starts, the house on the south side of that northern entrance of Canfield, where the fencing starts, there's a dip in the sidewalk in there as well. And I guess water drains from the higher backyard and ponds onto that sunken section of sidewalk there as well. Okay, again, drain it away from there so that people don't slip and fall in the wintertime, not realizing it.
Okay. Any other inquiries before we move on? Councillor Guichardi?
Just a comment and observation. The sidewalks on the south side of Main from Town Hall down to James Street are looking really, really good. That project turned out really, really well. So kudos to you and those involved, Jim.
Okay. Through your worship, thank you very much. We'll pass that along to the contractor too, but thank you.
Excellent. It's been a busy fall. Okay. Anybody else?
Are they
Councillor Bernardo?
Are they still paving the trails, or are they stopped for the winter?
Through your worship, they were planning to pave last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the weather didn't hold out for us. So now we're into the temperatures where it's not conducive to paving at this point. So we're suggesting, actually, I was going to circulate that to council as well, that we hold off on the paving until next spring, and then the contractor can come back and finish that off. They're just at this time of year with the temperatures what they are, we just want to make sure that that base coat goes down good on it. So
are we opening up the trails then for the winter?
Through your worship, there would be the one over by Morden as a connection for the kids. But until they were hard service, we weren't going to plow them because we're going to dig them up too much. So that one we will have to keep open for the kids. But the other ones, we were looking at keeping it status quo as we have in previous years. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to reports then. So the first report is report FS 2024-11 from our Director of Financial Services regarding the draft 2025 budget. So we are at that point in time, I think, where we're ready to move ahead with this. We've moved through each of the phases of our scheduled budget process, starting with the budget process, draft presentation to council, public meeting at our last council meeting, and here we are ready to go, I think. So I'd be happy to go ahead and move that council receives the report with respect to the 2025 draft budget for information, and further the council adopts the 2025 draft budget as circulated and instructs staff to bring forward a bylaw adopting the 2025 draft budget for the December 9th council meeting. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Bernardo. Any discussion on that? Oh, Councillor Guichardi.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to, as a 64-year resident, a business owner, and privileged to be a member of council and the chair of our DEI committee, I think staff and councils of past have done a really good job of putting together this park plan. They have a long-term visionary approach that includes elements of accessibility and equity, and as we provide more options for parks for our growing community. I'd like to also add, there are some from surrounding municipalities who don't pay taxes to the town of Shelburne, and they enjoy using our parks, and that cost and fees for their use has been consistently waived by this and prior councils. I appreciate the work and the contributions of those groups, but in turn would hope that they would also appreciate what the town and the taxpayers of Shelburne support to help facilitate these contributions. While your taxes aren't paid in Shelburne, we have extended the courtesy of listening to your concerns and criticisms regarding our plans for parks over the past few weeks. And this process for this planning was put into place 6-7 years ago, previous councils. I think this is going to be an amazing park when it's finished next year. It's a 1-year interruption. And, long after we're not sitting around this table anymore, there'll be citizens of this community that will enjoy and marvel at this park and what it's going to become. So we just ask for patience from the citizens of the community, and it's a 1-year interruption, and look forward to what it looks like in 2026.
Okay, thank you. It's well said. Anybody else? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that carries. Okay. Thanks, Carrie. I know it's been a long haul and a long process, but as always, you made it pretty painless for council. So thanks for all your work, and I know it's not just you either. You've got a good team behind you. So thanks to everybody who had a hand in drafting the budget this year.
Thank you.
All right, on to our next report, CAO's report regarding the Dufferin County Multi-Jurisdictional Fire Prevention and Protection Modernization Plan report. And Denise has provided a report in the agenda package with some commentary on the options as well as some recommendations. So Denise, I'll turn it over to you, and then we can have a chat.
Thank you, Mayor Mills, and through yourself. So as the mayor mentioned, this report is in follow-up to a study and an assessment that was completed by Dufferin County regarding multi-jurisdictional fire options. And the direction was that once that report was received, that it go back to the lower tiers, and that it was requested that the lower tiers provide general comments back to the County of Dufferin by the end of the year. So outlined in the background section was specifically what options were recommended in order of preference. So the first was that a single tier fire department be created and operated by the county. So countywide fire services, which would be similar to paramedical services, which are actually a function of the hospital. The second was that the town of Orangeville would be the model that would be supported, and then municipalities would then either contract or roll into that model. The third, which is what this report has recommended, is that the governance of the various fire departments revert to being municipal council's governance responsibility with a contract for service model. And the fourth was nothing, status quo would be maintained. So as council is aware, the review that the town of Shelburne has undertaken has been quite extensive. It started originally with the county's first service delivery review. And as a result of that assessment, there were a number of recommendations on governance that were specific to boards. And in our case, it was specific to 2 boards. And it was suggested that the dissolution, or at least the assessment of that, be evaluated based on a number of criteria that were looked at on the benefits and some of the challenges with the board structure. So that link is there. In follow-up, the town of Shelburne's council adopted in principle that the dissolution of the boards would be a strategic opportunity for council to move forward. And originally in 2021, of August 2021, some preliminary discussions were actually initiated for that exact purpose. Nothing past that original engagement process moved forward. The town of Shelburne also undertook a service delivery review, and the same consultants that completed the county's SDR completed ours. While they didn't reevaluate the fire services, they did embed in their report that that was something that they would continue to recommend. And most recently, we actually undertook our own community risk assessment. And within the consultant's recommendation for that, and every lower tier, every municipality in Ontario had a responsibility to complete a community risk assessment. The same sort of recommendations were embedded in their professional assessment, that it would make sense to continue to explore the dissolution of the fire board and assess how the governance and the delivery of that service area could be incorporated into the town of Shelburne's organizational structure. And it is noted that prior to the creation of the board, and certainly at the time, there were probably a number of significant benefits and, I guess, strategic directions that made that approach very beneficial and meaningful. However, the consultant's assessment, as well as what staff have indicated, is that potentially that has evolved to the point where there needs to be a reassessment of that approach. So in the report is the background as well for the town of Orangeville, because the town of Orangeville was referenced as the second preferred direction from the consultant's report for the county. So the town of Orangeville, as I know council is fully aware, has a department within its organizational municipal structure. And as a service area, they provide contract fee for service fire support to a number of other municipalities in Dufferin County. And I would also have relationships with the budding municipalities that may be in other areas through first aid agreements and other mutual aid agreements, or mutual aid agreements. And I've given you one link of an example, and there's many with the town of Orangeville, and that's specifically with the township of Amaranth. As part of this process, as I noted, each municipality was asked to provide their comments back to the county. The township of Mulmer had provided some input through a staff report, which you have links to. It's also listed on our agenda tonight, where they provided their November 6th resolution, and that's actually provided in full within the staff report, where they actually, similar to what the town of Shelburne Council undertook in 2021, are supporting in principle the dissolution of the fire board servicing the township of Mulmer. It is noted in their case that they have 3 fire boards. They're a part of the Shelburne District. They are working with the department in Honeywood, and they're also part of an inter-county type of approach with the Rosemont department, which is works with the municipality of Agtos. So they have also suggested that what they would like to see is a different approach, whereby there would be a North Dufferin Fire Service. And one of the suggestions that was listed was whether or not the town of Shelburne would operate the entirety of that as one example. So certainly, this report is recommended, and this is similar to our prior assessments, that option 3, as listed in the County of Dufferin's consultant report, would be the direction that staff is recommending we continue to proceed with. And that is to bring fire services via the dissolution of the board back within the formal structure of the town of Shelburne, and that there could be then fee-for-service arrangements, but based on a partnership and collaborative approach that could be implemented. At the same time, there could be further assessment of the Township of Mulmer's request to determine whether or not that approach is not only strategic financially and organizationally for the town of Shelburne, but would need to undertake a fairly comprehensive review because there is multi-county jurisdictional areas and not all are contiguous with the town of Shelburne. And that would likely need to involve a subject matter expert or a consultant in fire services to assist us as the town of Shelburne in evaluating that opportunity. Additionally, partnerships are not unique. There are a number of recent partnerships that have been successful. One is the town of Lincoln and the town of Grimsby. In that model, the transition that has occurred is that all of the staff that were formerly with the town of Grimsby are staff with the town of Lincoln. So that allows a cohesive and centralized approach to how they oversee that service structure. There is also in Minto a tri-partnership between 3 municipalities, which is a little bit different in the fact that while a certain part of the team are town of Minto staff members, all the other staff are part of the lower tier. We certainly as staff, if that was something we were to look at, would need more time to fully evaluate and understand the functionality of that, particularly as it relates to human resources, policies, finances, risk, and the list goes on. So I've certainly just listed that to acknowledge what else is existing in the province. The report is attached. I know council is aware of this, but we roll up the Shelburne District fire budgets as a component of our budget. All of the detail is provided in Appendix 1. And most important, I'm going to reference something that changed in the last few years. And it's understood that as a community grows, their need for fire services also grows. Originally, the expectation for a fire department or building expansion was about 2.2 million. That was captured in some of our DC reviews. That then changed to 12, of which it was not. And most recently, that has been escalated to 15 million. And it's right now showing in the 2028 budget. So we certainly not only did not collect any DCs applicable to 12 million, we are not collecting DCs currently for 15 and would need to do so. The allocation formula, which again, I know a lot of this is not new news to council, but for the sake of those that are listening or watching, it certainly needs to be noted that the way that the allocation is structured requires that the town of Shelburne pays approximately 56.3%. And there is a chart that outlines how the partners, of which there are 5, including Shelburne, each of which is given 2 representatives on the board. So it's equal weight. There's no tiered structure here or weighted voting. And for example, in the 2024 budget, Shelburne would pay 56.3%, both of operating and capital, for a contribution of just under $725,000. So the structure right now, because Shelburne did not ratify or authorize the updated draft agreement, falls back to the agreement from 1991. And that is included as an appendix. That currently requires 2 years notification in order for any partner or the board to be terminated in general. So in order for us to move forward with what staff are recommending be the option that council consider and approve, there are a number of process issues that would need to also be undertaken fairly quickly, so that termination protocol, which is approved as the agreement is through bylaw, would need to be either exempted or agreed to be set aside and the bylaws rescinded in order for this process to move forward more quickly. And the staff report has indicated that ideally we would hope to see this transition, if again council approves this moving forward, by Q1 2026, which would require a significant amount of work to be completed starting early in 2025. And if council supported the recommendation, then we as staff would complete the additional assessment and analysis based on the agreement and all of the related operating and specifically capital costs that would require some kind of, I guess, disbursement or service support in order to move forward with that approach. And then we would start completing some of that work, which at this point we haven't. So that is the report in a summary. I didn't want to get too detailed in what all the past analysis that we as the town of Shelburne has completed, but certainly the links are in there. This would be, in our minds, a strategic and beneficial approach for the town of Shelburne, but certainly would need to ensure that the current partners also feel that it is beneficial to them. And embedded in the recommendations is a commitment that there would continue to be collaboration and engagement as part of a go-forward strategy, so that it would not be a unilateral, if that's the correct word, relationship, that there would always be welcomed input to ensure that services are reflective of what other communities that we would be providing and supporting need. But also it would have to be recognized fair and equitable that there would be costs to the town of Shelburne to provide services that they otherwise would not provide to our own community, and how that relationship would need to be structured. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions. If they're financial, my colleague, of course, Carrie, and I will both try to answer them, but this report didn't delve into that too much, because we certainly didn't want to undertake work that, and we didn't want to undertake any work until we actually had your approval on what direction you would like us to take. Thank you, Mayor Mills.
Okay, thanks, Denise. I can share a little bit more detail just as far as the Shelburne and District Fire Board discussion, and Deputy Mayor Hall, I'm sure we'll probably want to share some thoughts too. But at a recent board meeting, we did actually have a fairly lengthy and productive discussion as a group. And, you know, a lot of the concerns, I think, that have been expressed in the past about a move to this sort of, you know, devolution to a municipal system, I think are maybe beginning to soften from some of our partners. You know, time and time again, you know, expert opinion after expert opinion, report after report, they're all confirming the same thing, that, you know, that the current board structure is just something that's outdated, it's outmoded, it's not really recognized under the legislative framework that we're working under. And the consistent recommendation seems to be that there's a movement back to a municipal service, like what the recommendation in the report is. Through the discussions that we had at the board, you know, I think a couple of things kind of rose to the surface. One was that if that's the path that we take, and there seemed to be some recognition that that's probably the path to take, that as a group we wouldn't want to lose that consultative, cooperative approach that we've sort of developed since 1991. And I think that's fair. And one of the concerns that has been expressed in the past by some of our partners, I think is based on some of the relationships they have with other fee for service relationships that they're involved with right now. But I think the point has been made that, we don't have to follow any particular model. So it's not to say that if we go in this direction that it'll be the same model that Orangeville Fire uses. And to your point, Denise, I think in my mind and probably for the peace of mind of the board, something like that Grimsby Lincoln model seems pretty attractive. So the fire service would be a municipal service, but there would still be an advisory group made up of representatives from the other 4 municipalities, not unlike the police service context that we have now. We have a group that meets with the detachment commander on at least a quarterly basis. We're not directing, budgetary or operational decisions, but it is an opportunity for us as a municipality to share local concerns with the detachment commander. I kind of see a similar model playing out with this, where, we could have an advisory group that collaborates, that meets with the fire chief, however frequently we think seems appropriate, but, probably at least quarterly. And that would give each of the 4 municipalities who are essentially buying service from the town of Shelburne an opportunity to have some face time with the chief and to share whatever concerns they may have at a local level. The other part of the discussion we had at the board is the notion of this North Dufferin fire service, and I think everybody saw some value in that from a notional point of view, but I also think everybody appreciated that there's a lot of complexity involved in that, and it's probably going to take some time to unpack all the details. So I had kind of suggested as my parting comment at the last meeting that I think step 1 in this process is just what you've recommended. It's rolling back the Shelburne and District Fire Service into a municipal in-house fire service operated by the town of Shelburne. We can build that collaborative model as a group, and then from there we can look at what opportunities may exist to do something on a larger scale in terms of a northern county regional effort. But I don't think we can really have any fruitful discussion in that regard until we get to the point where this service is made municipal and we know what direction our particular board is headed in. Deputy Mayor Hall, do you want to add to that? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I'll add a few things. Quite honestly, when you look at the overall summary, as you go into the more complexity of the county side of things, there really needs to be a look at the consistency, and that's one thing that having that opportunity for ourselves certainly brings. It's a process that's going to require a lot of understanding. So just to give council an understanding of where the board is at, we'll meet and have further discussions in the month of December with regards to levels of service. And that's the level of service that a fire department provides to the community that they serve. Now, obviously, it's simple for Shelburne. That level of service is what we currently receive. A lot of the other municipalities have, as Denise has already mentioned in the overall report, they're serviced by a minimum of at least 2 other departments. So having a clear understanding of that is some of the things that they're going to have to understand. When it came to the advisory board, the one thing that I would add to what the mayor has said is the basic feeling around that table was that those seats would not be occupied by council alone. They were looking at staff actually sitting in some of those positions in order to get a better feel for what their communities might need. But again, as the mayor has mentioned, this is the first step of a process, and I certainly think that there's an opportunity for us to, go down this path and improve the overall service for the areas that get covered by this. And I am glad to see that we do have what it looks like commitment from the other municipalities to again revise or at least get back to the idea of a change is necessary.
Any other thoughts or questions? No? Okay. So the recommendation is rather lengthy. I'm actually going to read it out here just because I don't want to miss anything. So bear with me. So it reads as follows: be it resolved, the council receives report CAO 2024-05 regarding Dufferin County multi-jurisdictional fire prevention and protection modernization plan report for information. And that the town of Shelburne supports a revised model for fire services, one that would be based on collaboration and dissolution of the Shelburne and District Fire Board. And that the town of Shelburne approves option 3 from the Dufferin County multi-jurisdictional fire prevention and protection modernization plan report. That governance of the various fire departments revert to municipal councils with a contract for services model be supported. And that the town of Shelburne reinitiates discussions with municipalities represented on the board of the Shelburne and District Fire Department regarding dissolving the SDFD Fire Board and to bring SDFD under direct governance and management of the town of Shelburne in the first quarter of 2026. The only other thing that I would add to that is that we circulate a copy of this resolution if it passes to our other 4 municipal partners. Councillor Bernardo, do you want to move that?
Yes, I do. Beyond that, I also call for a recorded vote.
Okay, let's get a mover and seconder first. So moved by Councillor Bernardo. Deputy Mayor Hall, I'll give you the second on this since you're chair of the board.
Can we do one slight amendment and add the county into that circulation as well?
Yeah, I think that only makes sense since we're essentially responding to a county report. You're okay with that, Councillor Bernardo?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no issues. I'm just happy to see this motion.
Yeah, so I think for the sake of clarity, we'll circulate it to Amaranth, Mulmer, Mono, Melanchthon, the fire board specifically, and the county. Okay. All right, so motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? No. Okay, recorded vote has been called.
The recorded vote has been called. When I say your name, when I call your name, please indicate yes or no. Deputy Mayor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Bernardo.
Yes.
Councillor Fegan.
Yes.
Councillor Bouchardy.
Yes.
Councillor Sample.
Yes.
Councillor Wagner.
Yes.
And Mayor Mills.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right. So we'll have more to come on that, I'm sure, in relatively short order. Okay, the next order of business is a letter actually from the fire department. So they're looking to host an event on December 12th. They're having a guest speaker in, and they would like the use of Grace Tippling Hall, and have asked us to waive the fee, which would amount to a total of $236 plus HST. Councillor Bernardo, you want to?
I'd like to move it that we do waive the fees because I think the subject is a very important subject and something that needs to be discussed among the fire departments, and then the information passed out to the public once they've done their training on it. Lithium batteries have caused fires within vehicles and households as well. So I think it's a product that maybe they need to seriously look at.
Okay, Councillor Sample, I saw your hand shoot up too. Will you second it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was seconding it. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, next is a request from the Kinsman Club of Shelburne. So they had hosted a Thanksgiving weekend toll gate. I guess it's sort of a retroactive request at this point. They're asking us to waive the road occupancy permit, which amounts to $135. I guess at this point, if council doesn't waive it, they would have to pay that sort of after the fact. Is that Jennifer?
Your worship, they had to pay it in order to get their permit. So we
Okay.
would refund it. Should council approve the waiving of fees request, they would get a refund.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarity on that. Councillor Guichardi.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that motion forward.
Okay. To approve the waiving?
Yes, to approve the waiving and
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Wagner. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. The last report is bylaw number 48-2024, which is a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the province to modernize marriage license applications by providing online services through the province. Jennifer, do you have any details on that you want to share, or not really?
Well, through your worship, it's fairly straightforward. It's nice to see the province actually starting to modernize some of their services. And so this is a pilot program, and we would like to participate in the pilot program.
So as it stands right now, if somebody wants a marriage license, they physically have to go into town hall and fill out like a paper-based application. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
All right. No. Makes sense to me then. So the recommendation is that we resolve for leave to be given for the reading and enacting a bylaw number 48-2024, which is a bylaw to enter into an agreement with His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement. Mover and seconder for that, Councillor Fegan. Seconded by Councillor Sample. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Any notices of motion for this evening? No? Okay. On to communications. There's a list there of 16 items. Is there anything that anybody wants to pull out? Councillor Sample?
Yeah, pull out that number 4, calming measures for County Road 17. I still think is very important that we get something move forward with that. So
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to support that
yeah, I'll support
resolution
that.
formally, or?
Yeah, I'll support it. Yep.
Okay. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Hall. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right. Anything else from the list? Okay, can I have a motion then to receive the remaining items as information? Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Guichardi. All in favor? That's carried. All right, that takes us to our confirming bylaw. Can we mover and seconder for that? Then I'll go at once. Councillor Donato, seconded by Councillor Sample. All in favor? Carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Donato, seconded by Councillor Wagner. All in favor? Carried. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you back on the 9th.
At least
Thank
you
you.
prove it, Lindsay.